poor black widow begged, "Please bury my child." The mountain man's response will shock you as she collapses at his cabin door, her daughter's lifeless body clutched against the howling blizzard. The townsfolk had cast out the desperate mother like a plague, whispering she deserved God's wrath for her sins. They expected the wilderness to finish what their cruelty started, another forgotten grave beneath the snow. But the feared hermit blocking her path isn't the savage beast they warned her about. This giant carries secrets that could either damn them both or resurrect hope from the frozen wasteland. Hidden beneath his wild exterior lies knowledge that the girl's death might not be final, but salvation comes with a price that will expose truths powerful enough to destroy an entire town. Will the mountain man become her salvation or seal their doom forever? Before we continue, comment where you are tuning in from. Perhaps we will publish a story there. The winter of 1887 struck Cedar Falls with merciless fury. Snow buried the Colorado Territory town under 3 feet of white silence. Inside her cramped cabin, Mercy Washington pressed a damp cloth against her daughter's burning forehead. Rose had been sick for 5 days. The fever climbed higher each night. At 8 years old, the girl barely weighed 50 pounds soaking wet. Now she felt like a burning coal against Mercy's chest. "Mama, I'm cold," Rose whispered through cracked lips. Mercy pulled the thin blanket tighter around them both. She had burned their last piece of furniture the night before. The cabin held no more wood, no more food, no more hope. A heavy knock rattled the door. Reverend Caleb Stone stood on her threshold with 3 men behind him. His black coat made him look like a vulture against the snow. Deputy Marcus Stone shifted uncomfortably beside his father. "Time's up, Mercy Washington." She clutched Rose closer. "My daughter needs rest. Just 1 more day. Your husband's debts won't wait. This cabin belongs to the bank now." The Reverend's eyes held no mercy despite his calling. "God's will be done." The men pushed past her. They grabbed her few possessions and tossed them into the snow. Rose whimpered as the cold air rushed inside. "Please, Reverend. Rose is burning with fever. Dr. Hayes won't see her without payment." "Then perhaps you should have thought of that before." His voice carried the weight of final judgment. "Decent folk can't be expected to support every unfortunate soul." Marcus Stone avoided her eyes as he helped carry out their belongings. His father watched with satisfaction as Mercy wrapped Rose in their quilt. "Where are we supposed to go?" "That's between you and the Almighty." The door slammed shut behind them. Main Street stretched before them like a frozen river. Mercy knocked on the first door she reached. Mrs. Patterson peeked through her curtain, then quickly pulled it closed. The mercantile owner pretended not to see them through his window. At the doctor's office, she begged through the locked door. "Please, Dr. Hayes, my daughter is dying." "Can't help those who can't pay," came his muffled reply. "Try prayer." She tried the church next. The doors were barred. A sign read, "Closed for cleaning." Every face turned away. Every door remained shut. The townspeople whispered behind gloved hands as she passed. Their eyes held the cold judgment of those who believed suffering meant sin. Rose grew heavier in her arms. The child's breathing turned shallow and quick. Her fever spiked so high that snow melted instantly on her skin. Mercy stumbled toward the edge of town. Behind her, warm lights glowed in windows where families gathered for dinner. Ahead lay the wilderness that had claimed so many travelers. She remembered the stories. Up in the mountains lived a hermit who scared away visitors with threats and violence. They called him Bear. Some said he was a deserter. Others claimed he had gone mad from isolation. But he was her only choice. The trail vanished under fresh snowfall. Wind cut through her thin coat like knives. Rose stopped shivering, which terrified Mercy more than the fever had. When children stopped shivering, death was close. Her legs gave out twice. Each time, she forced herself back up. Rose's life depended on reaching that cabin. Even if the mountain man killed them both, it had to be better than freezing alone in the woods. Hours passed. The blizzard intensified until she couldn't see 5 feet ahead. Her feet had gone numb. Rose felt like dead weight in her arms. Then she saw it, a thin column of smoke rising through the trees. The cabin squatted against the mountainside like a wounded bear. Yellow light flickered through its windows. Mercy's heart hammered as she stumbled toward the door. She could barely lift her arm to knock. Heavy footsteps approached from inside. The door creaked open. The man who filled the doorway stood nearly 7 feet tall. Wild hair fell to his shoulders. His beard hadn't seen scissors in years. Muscles bulged under his thick shirt. Everything about him screamed danger. His dark eyes fixed on Rose's still form. Mercy's voice came out as a broken whisper. "Please, mister, I know I got no right to ask. But my little girl, she's—" The words died in her throat. Rose's chest barely moved. Her lips had turned blue. "Please, just bury my child. I got nothing to pay you with, but please don't let the wolves get her. That's all I'm asking." The mountain man stared down at them. His expression revealed nothing. Wind howled through the trees behind her. Rose's breathing stopped. Mercy felt her world collapse. Her daughter was gone. She had failed as a mother. Failed as a protector. Failed at everything that mattered. The giant man dropped to one knee. His massive hand moved with surprising gentleness as he pressed 2 fingers against Rose's neck. The seconds stretched like hours. His voice came out low and steady, carrying an authority that made no sense from a wild hermit. "She's still breathing. Barely." Before Mercy could respond, he scooped Rose from her arms and turned toward the cabin. "Get inside. Now." The mountain man carried Rose like she weighed nothing. His boots thundered across the wooden floor as he headed straight for a table near the fireplace. "Clear that off," he barked at Mercy. She swept books and papers aside with shaking hands. He laid Rose down with the care of someone who had done this before. Many times. Mercy blinked hard. The cabin's interior made no sense. Clean bandages hung from a line near the fire. Glass bottles filled with clear liquids lined wooden shelves. Medical instruments gleamed in a wooden box. This wasn't the lair of a mad hermit. The man moved with surgical precision. He pressed his ear to Rose's chest, then lifted her eyelids to check her pupils. His massive hands examined her neck and wrists with expert knowledge. "Water. Boiling. 2 pots," he commanded without looking up. "Cloths from that basket, the white ones only." Mercy obeyed without question. Her mind reeled as she watched him work. He wasn't guessing or fumbling. Every movement showed training. Professional training. He rolled up his sleeves and scrubbed his hands in a basin. The ritual looked familiar. She had seen doctors do the same thing. Real doctors. "What's her name?" "Rose. Rose Washington." "How long has she been sick?" 5 days, maybe 6. He nodded and continued his examination. His fingers found Rose's pulse points with the accuracy of someone who had checked thousands of them. From a glass bottle, he measured liquid into a wooden spoon. The smell was sharp and medicinal, nothing a mountain hermit should own. "Hold her head up." Mercy cradled her daughter's skull as he dripped medicine between her lips. Rose's throat worked reflexively to swallow. "Good girl," he murmured. He soaked clean cloths in cool water and placed them on Rose's forehead and neck. Then he opened her coat and shirt to listen to her breathing again. "Pneumonia. Early stages. Caught it just in time." Mercy's knees nearly buckled. "You're a doctor." It wasn't a question. The man glanced up at her. For a moment, something vulnerable flickered in his eyes. Then his expression hardened again. "Was. Long time ago." He returned to Rose, mixing powders into water. The smell reminded Mercy of the hospital where her husband had died. Antiseptic and hope mixed together. "Drink this when she wakes up. Small sips every hour." He handed her a cup of pale liquid. "Too much will make her sick." Mercy studied his face. Beneath the wild hair and untrimmed beard, she saw intelligence, compassion. This man had saved lives before. "What's your real name?" He hesitated. "Bear's fine." "Your real name?" He moved to a shelf and pulled down a leather-bound book. Medical terms filled the pages. diagrams of human anatomy, treatment protocols. Joshua McKinnon, Dr. Joshua McKinnon. The name hit her like lightning. Even in Cedar Falls, people had heard of Dr. McKinnon, the miracle surgeon of the Civil War, the man who had saved more soldiers than any doctor in the Union Army. You're him, the one from the newspapers. Joshua's jaw tightened. That was somebody else. He prepared another mixture, this one smelling of herbs and honey. Rose's breathing had grown stronger, but her fever still burned high. Why are you hiding up here? Some questions are better left alone. But as he worked through the night, pieces of his story emerged. The way he handled surgical instruments with reverence, how he flinched when she mentioned the war, the careful distance he kept from human contact. You saved thousands of lives, Mercy said quietly. Lost more than I saved. That's not what the papers said. Joshua stopped working. His hands trembled slightly as he set down a bottle. Papers don't tell you about the boys who died screaming. They don't mention the ones I couldn't put back together. His voice carried years of pain. They ordered me to cut off healthy limbs to save time. Said speed mattered more than keeping soldiers whole. You refused. I refused. Command didn't appreciate my medical opinion. He returned to Rose, checking her pulse again. Stronger now. More regular. So you disappeared. Some men aren't meant for civilization. Mercy watched him work. His hands moved with the same gentle precision on her daughter that he must have used on wounded soldiers. Despite his words, everything about him spoke of a healer. You didn't stop being a doctor, you just stopped trusting the world. Joshua met her eyes. Smart woman. My husband was sick for months before he died. I learned things. Herbs, remedies, how to read symptoms. Self-taught? Had to be. Doctors cost money we didn't have. Something shifted in Joshua's expression. Recognition of a kindred spirit, perhaps. Someone else who had fought death with whatever tools they could find. Rose stirred on the table. Her eyelids fluttered open. Mama? Mercy rushed to her side. I'm here, baby. I'm right here. Where are we? Somewhere safe. Joshua checked Rose's forehead with the back of his hand. The fever was breaking. Color had returned to her cheeks. Miracle worker, Mercy whispered. No miracles, just medicine and luck. But his eyes told a different story. This was why he had become a doctor, not for glory or recognition, for moments like this. When death released its grip and life won another day. Rose would live, and for the first time in months, Mercy Washington had hope. 3 days passed in careful routine. Joshua checked Rose's breathing every few hours while Mercy prepared herbal teas that complemented his medicines. They worked together without discussion, each understanding their role in Rose's recovery. The child grew stronger each day. Her fever broke completely on the second morning. By the third day, she sat up asking for food. You've got healing hands, Joshua told Mercy as she ground willow bark into powder. Learned from necessity. My husband suffered lung problems for 2 years before he died. Mining accident? Mercy's hands stilled. Cave-in at the silver mine. Thomas lived 6 months after they pulled him out. Coughed blood the whole time. Joshua studied her face. You kept him alive longer than most doctors could have. Not long enough. Never is. They understood each other's pain. Both had watched people they loved slip away despite their best efforts. Both carried the weight of lives they couldn't save. Rose dozed by the fire wrapped in Joshua's thick wool blankets. Her breathing was clear and steady now. The crisis had passed. Why didn't you try to find another doctor? Joshua asked. In Cedar Falls? Dr. Hayes charges $5 just to look at you. We barely had enough for food. Town council didn't help? Mercy's laugh held no humor. Reverend Stone said sickness was God's judgment, claimed helping me would be interfering with divine will. Joshua's expression darkened. What kind of preacher refuses aid to a widow and child? the kind who wanted our cabin. She told him about the eviction, how the Reverend claimed unpaid debts that seemed to grow larger each week, how the townspeople turned away when she begged for help. Thomas found something before he died, she said quietly. In the mine shaft behind our property. He never told me what, but he was excited. Said our troubles were over. What happened to his findings? Reverend Stone seized all our papers when they evicted us, said it was payment for debts. Joshua nodded grimly. He had seen men like Stone before, wolves in sheep's clothing who used religion to justify their greed. You can stay here until Rose is fully recovered, he said. That's generous, but we can't impose forever. Where will you go? Mercy had no answer. Cedar Falls had made their position clear. Other towns would be the same. A poor widow with a mixed-race child had few options in the Colorado Territory. I've been thinking, Joshua said. This cabin gets lonely. Rose could use proper schooling. You could use a safe place to raise her. You're offering us a home? I'm offering a partnership. Your knowledge of herbs combined with my medical training. We could help people who can't afford town doctors. Mercy stared at him. You'd do that? For us? For all of us, including me. Over the following days, they fell into an easy partnership. Joshua taught Mercy to stitch wounds and set bones. She showed him which local plants could treat infections and pain. Rose recovered her strength and curiosity. She asked endless questions about Joshua's medical books and helped gather healing herbs from the mountainside. Are you going to marry Mama? Rose asked one evening with the directness of childhood. Joshua nearly choked on his coffee. Mercy's cheeks turned red. Rose Washington, that's not polite. I like him, Mama. He saved my life. We're friends, Joshua said carefully. Good friends who help each other. But something had shifted between them. Trust had grown into affection. Shared purpose had deepened into something stronger. Then Marcus Stone arrived on horseback, breathing hard from a fast ride up the mountain. They're coming, he said without preamble. My father's organized a search party, 20 men. They'll be here by morning. Mercy's blood turned to ice. What does he want? Says the mountain man corrupted you. Claims you're both a danger to decent folk. Joshua stepped forward. Your father's real problem is with me, not her. He's convinced the townspeople that you've bewitched her, that you're keeping her and Rose prisoner. That's ridiculous. Doesn't matter. He's got them believing it. They're coming with ropes and guns. Marcus looked genuinely distressed. There's something else. Something I overheard. He glanced at Mercy, then continued reluctantly. Your husband found gold, a rich vein running under your property. My father's been planning to claim it since Thomas died. The words hit Mercy like a physical blow. What? The eviction, the refused medical care, all of it. He orchestrated everything to drive you away. With you and Rose gone, he could claim the land legally. Joshua's hands clenched into fists. He let a child nearly die for money. When Rose got sick, he saw it as providence, said God was clearing the path for righteous men to prosper. Mercy sank onto a chair, the full horror of it washing over her. Her husband's death hadn't been enough. The Reverend had planned to let Rose die, too. Why are you telling us this? Joshua asked. Marcus looked ashamed. I became a lawman to protect people, not to help my father steal from widows and orphans. Rose had been listening from her bed near the fire. Her young face showed fear, but also determination. Are we going to run away? She asked. Mercy looked at Joshua. They could flee deeper into the mountains, try to disappear before the search party arrived. No, Joshua said firmly. We're going to fight back. How? Marcus asked. It's your word against his. In this territory, that's not a fair fight. Joshua smiled grimly. Then we'll have to change the rules. Marcus pulled a leather satchel from his saddlebag with trembling hands. I've been collecting evidence for months. Every document my father thought he destroyed. He spread papers across Joshua's table. Mining claims, forged debt notices, letters between the Reverend and bank officials. Your husband filed this claim 3 days before his death, Marcus said, pointing to an official document. Rich gold vein running directly under your cabin, worth thousands. Mercy studied her late husband's signature. Thomas had tried to tell her something the night he died, but the words were lost in his final coughing fit. The cave-in wasn't an accident, Marcus continued. My father paid the mine foreman to weaken the support beams. They needed Thomas dead before he could register the claim properly. Joshua's face turned stone cold. Murder. Can't prove that part, but I can prove the land theft. Marcus showed them more documents. The Reverend had been systematically buying up properties around Mercy's cabin through shell companies, creating a mining empire while hiding behind his pulpit. Why help us now? Mercy asked. Because I watched a child nearly die for my father's greed. Some lines can't be uncrossed. Rose sat up in her blankets, listening intently. Is the bad preacher coming to hurt us? He's going to try, Joshua said. But we're not helpless anymore. They spent the night planning. Marcus would return to town and gather sympathetic townspeople. Several had grown uncomfortable with the Reverend's harsh treatment of Mercy. Mrs. R. Patterson asked about you last week, Marcus told her. She felt guilty about turning you away. The mercantile owner, too, he added. Said it didn't sit right, forcing a sick child into the wilderness. Joshua studied the legal documents with growing understanding. Your father made one critical mistake. He kept records of everything. Pride, Marcus explained. He wanted proof of his cleverness. Never thought anyone would find them. How many men will he bring? Joshua asked. 20, maybe 25, all convinced you're holding Mercy and Rose prisoner. What's the plan when they arrive? Marcus looked grim. Arrest you for kidnapping, probably worse. My father's been telling stories about what mountain men do to decent women. Mercy's stomach churned. She knew the kind of stories men told to justify violence. We need those townspeople to see the truth, Joshua said. All of it, at once. He began gathering his medical certificates and military commendations from a wooden chest, documents that proved his identity beyond question. Dr. Joshua McKinnon, Mercy read from a faded certificate. Graduated Johns Hopkins Medical School with highest honors. Another lifetime, Joshua muttered. No, this lifetime. You saved Rose. You saved me. Rose joined them at the table, her strength nearly restored. Are you famous, Joshua? I used to be. Marcus stared at the certificates. You're the Union surgeon from the newspapers, the one who saved General Morrison's life at Gettysburg. Among others. My father doesn't know who you really are. That's our advantage. They worked through the night preparing their defense. Marcus would lead the search party to the cabin just after dawn. Joshua would reveal his identity when the crowd was largest. Your medical reputation carries weight, Marcus said. People trust doctors, even ex-doctors. The key is timing. We need maximum impact. Rose helped organize the legal documents while Mercy prepared food for the confrontation ahead. They would need strength for what was coming. I'm scared, Mama, Rose admitted as they worked. Me too, baby. But we're not alone anymore. Joshua cleaned his military medals, each one representing lives saved on battlefields. His hands shook slightly as he polished the brass. You don't have to do this, Mercy said softly. We could still run. Running won't stop your father-in-law. He'll just find another widow to victimize. This could destroy your peaceful life here. Joshua looked at Rose helping Marcus sort papers. The child had brought joy back to his cabin, purpose to his empty days. Peace without justice isn't peace. It's just hiding. Marcus stood to leave before dawn. Remember, I can't openly side with you until the evidence comes out. Have to maintain cover. Understood. If this goes wrong, they might hang you both. Joshua and Mercy exchanged glances. They had already discussed the risks. Then we better make sure it goes right, Joshua said. After Marcus left, they arranged the cabin strategically. Medical books prominently displayed, military honors visible on the mantel, legal documents organized for maximum impact. "You ready for this?" Joshua asked Mercy. She looked at Rose, sleeping peacefully by the fire. Her daughter had nearly died because of one man's greed. Other children might face the same fate if Reverend Stone continued his schemes. "I'm ready." The sound of horses approached through the morning mist, multiple riders moving fast up the mountain trail. Joshua straightened his shirt and checked his appearance. The wild mountain man was about to transform back into Dr. McKinnon. "Remember," he told Mercy, "let them make their accusations first. We want witnesses to hear their lies before we present the truth." Rose woke up as the horses grew louder. "Is it time?" "It's time." 25 armed men emerged from the tree line led by Reverend Stone. Their faces showed righteous anger mixed with nervous excitement. Behind them rode several townspeople Marcus had convinced to witness whatever happened next. Joshua opened the cabin door and stepped outside. The confrontation that would determine all their fates was about to begin. Reverend Stone sat tall in his saddle, black coat billowing like wings of judgment. 25 armed men flanked him in a semicircle around the cabin. Their faces showed the righteous anger of men convinced they were saving innocents. Behind the main group, Mrs. Patterson and 4 other townspeople watched nervously. Marcus had convinced them to witness whatever happened next. "Mountain Man," the Reverend called out, "release the woman and child! Your crimes against decency end today." Joshua stepped fully into view. Clean-shaven now, his wild hair trimmed and combed back. The transformation was startling. Gone was the savage hermit. In his place stood a man of obvious education and refinement. "What crimes would those be, Reverend?" Several riders shifted uncomfortably. The mountain man's voice carried unexpected authority. His posture spoke of military bearing, not madness. "Kidnapping, corruption of a Christian woman, endangering a child's welfare." Mercy appeared in the doorway, holding Rose's hand. Both were clean and well-dressed, showing no signs of captivity or abuse. "I wasn't kidnapped," Mercy said clearly. "Dr. McKinnon saved my daughter's life." "Doctor?" Reverend Stone's confidence flickered. "This savage is no doctor." Joshua reached into his vest and pulled out a leather folder. His military commendations and medical certificates gleamed in the morning sun. "Dr. Joshua McKinnon, Johns Hopkins Medical School. Former Chief Surgeon, Army of the Potomac." Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Several men lowered their weapons slightly. Mrs. Patterson gasped. "You're the doctor from the war, the one who saved General Morrison." "Among others." Reverend Stone's horse pranced nervously as his rider's composure cracked. "Impossible. You're a hermit, a madman living in the wilderness." "I'm a physician who chose solitude over society, until Mercy and Rose needed help." Joshua's voice carried across the clearing with the authority that had once commanded field hospitals during battle. "This woman came to me with a dying child. I provided medical care that saved the girl's life. Nothing more. Nothing less." "You lie," the Reverend snarled, but doubt had crept into his voice. Marcus rode forward, his deputy's badge catching the light. "Actually, Father, he's telling the truth about everything." The crowd stirred at Marcus's words. Several townspeople exchanged confused glances. "What are you doing, boy?" "My job, protecting innocent people from criminals." Marcus dismounted and walked to his father's horse. From his saddlebag, he pulled out the leather satchel containing the evidence. "Ladies and gentlemen, I present the real criminal in this matter." He held up the forged debt notices first. "My father fabricated these documents to steal Mercy Washington's property." Gasps erupted from the crowd. Mrs. Patterson rode closer to see the papers. "Her husband discovered gold on their land before his death, worth thousands of dollars. My father orchestrated her eviction to claim it illegally." "Lies!" Reverend Stone shouted. "My son has been corrupted by these devils." Marcus ignored his father's protests and continued reading from the documents. "Here's correspondence with bank officials planning the land seizure. Here are mining claims filed under false names, all in my father's handwriting." The evidence was overwhelming. Even the most loyal supporters began to waver. You forced a sick child into a blizzard rather than lose your stolen claim, Joshua said, his voice cutting through the morning air like a blade. God's judgment, the Reverend protested weakly. God's judgment? Mercy stepped forward, her voice strong with righteous anger. You watched my daughter nearly die for your greed. What God teaches that? Rose appeared beside her mother, healthy and strong, living proof that Joshua's medical care had saved her life. This man is a healer, Rose said in her clear child's voice. He made me better when I was dying. The armed men looked uncertain now. What they had expected to find bore no resemblance to reality. Mrs. Patterson dismounted and approached Mercy. Child, I'm sorry. We should have helped you that night. All of us should have helped. Other townspeople nodded in agreement. Shame replaced anger on their faces. The Reverend saw his support collapsing. You fools! This hermit has bewitched you all. Can't you see their deception? The only deception here is yours, Marcus said firmly. Caleb Stone, you're under arrest for fraud, theft, and conspiracy. You can't arrest your own father. I can and I will. I swore an oath to uphold the law. Marcus approached his father's horse with iron shackles. The Reverend looked around desperately for support, but found only disgusted faces. This is madness. I'm a man of God. You're a thief and a liar, Mrs. Patterson said, using God's name to justify stealing from a widow. The other townspeople voiced their agreement. The Reverend's authority crumbled completely as his crimes were exposed. Joshua stepped forward as Marcus secured the shackles. Reverend, your son has more honor in his little finger than you have in your entire body. This isn't over, the Reverend hissed. Yes, it is, Mercy said with quiet finality. Your lies have been exposed. Your schemes have failed. Justice has won. The armed men who had come to arrest Joshua now removed their hats respectfully. They had been deceived into serving injustice, and shame weighed heavily on their faces. Dr. McKinnon, Mrs. Urasakas Patterson said, would you consider returning to practice? Our town doctor is not worthy of the title. Joshua looked at Mercy and rose. I already have patients who need me. Marcus helped his father onto a horse for the ride back to town. There will be a trial, full restitution for the Washington family. And the gold claim? Mercy asked. Yours by right. Always was. The crowd began to disperse, but not before several townspeople approached Mercy with apologies and offers of help. Justice had triumphed not through violence, but through truth and courage. 6 months later, spring had transformed the mountainside into a carpet of wildflowers. The cabin that once housed a hermit now bustled with activity as the region's most trusted medical practice. Joshua hammered the final nail into a wooden sign that read, McKinnon and Washington Medical Practice, all welcome. The addition to the cabin had doubled its size, creating proper examination rooms and a dispensary for medicines. Mercy emerged from the herb garden carrying a basket of freshly gathered healing plants. Her dress was new, purchased with money from the gold claim that had rightfully been returned to her. More importantly, her face glowed with purpose and happiness. Mrs. Chen should be here soon for her baby's examination, she told Joshua. Good. That cough has been worrying me. Their partnership had grown into something neither had expected. Joshua's surgical skills combined with Mercy's herbal knowledge created treatments that surpassed anything available in surrounding towns. Word of their success had spread throughout the Colorado Territory. Rose appeared around the corner of the cabin, her arms full of books. At 9 years old, she had become an essential part of their practice. Her ability to speak 3 languages made her invaluable when treating immigrant families. Mr. Yamamoto is coming up the trail, she announced. He's walking better today. The elderly Japanese miner had suffered a broken leg that other doctors said would never heal properly. Joshua's surgical repair combined with Mercy's bone-strengthening teas had proven them wrong. Marcus Stone rode up the path wearing his sheriff's badge with obvious pride. His father's trial had elevated him to the position when the townspeople demanded honest leadership. "Afternoon, doctors," he called out cheerfully. The title fit naturally now. Mercy had proven her medical knowledge rivaled that of university-trained physicians. Joshua had officially recognized her as his partner in all aspects of their practice. "How's the prisoner?" Joshua asked. "Complaining about jail food and demanding a Bible. Some habits die hard." Reverend Stone's trial had been swift and decisive. The evidence Marcus provided left no room for doubt. The former reverend would spend 5 years in territorial prison for his crimes. "Any word on the new minister?" Mercy inquired. "Arrives next week. Young fellow from Denver who actually believes in helping the poor." Mrs. Chen appeared on the trail carrying her infant son. The Chinese woman had been terrified to seek medical help after years of discrimination. Rose's gentle translation had slowly built her trust. "Come in, Mrs. Chen," Mercy called warmly. "Let's see how little Tommy is doing." The examination revealed the child's cough was clearing nicely. Joshua's treatment had prevented what could have been fatal pneumonia. "No charge today," Mercy told the grateful mother. "Tommy's health is payment enough." This had become their standard practice. Those who could afford to pay did so generously. Those who couldn't received the same quality care without question. As afternoon faded to evening, their last patient departed with medicine and instructions for recovery. Joshua and Mercy sat on their porch watching Rose chase fireflies in the meadow. "Do you ever miss the old life?" Mercy asked. "The quiet and solitude?" Joshua considered the question seriously. "Sometimes I miss the simplicity, but I don't miss the emptiness." A year ago, his cabin had been a refuge from the world's pain. Now it was a beacon of hope for those the world had forgotten. "What about you? Any regrets about not returning to town?" "This is better than town. We're building something new here." Their romantic relationship had developed slowly, built on mutual respect and shared purpose. Neither rushed toward commitments that might complicate their work. Rose ran up to the porch, slightly out of breath from chasing fireflies. "Joshua, will you tell me about the war tonight?" "Which part?" "The part where you saved the general's life." Joshua had begun sharing his stories as a way to teach Rose about courage under pressure. The nightmares that once haunted his sleep had faded as new purpose replaced old guilt. "Only if you promise to practice your reading afterward." "Deal." The three of them went inside as mountain darkness settled over their valley. Oil lamps cast warm light through windows that had once been shuttered against the world. Joshua opened one of his medical textbooks to continue Rose's education. The girl had shown remarkable aptitude for healing arts and might one day become a doctor herself. "Read this passage about setting broken bones," he instructed. Rose read aloud with growing confidence. Her voice carried the same authority that would one day comfort frightened patients. Mercy prepared their evening meal while listening to the impromptu lesson. She had never learned to read until Joshua began teaching her 6 months ago. Now she devoured medical texts with the hunger of someone making up for lost time. After dinner, Joshua stepped outside to tend their horses. The gold claim had provided enough money to purchase proper medical equipment and expand their services throughout the region. He found Mercy standing by the large pine tree near their door. In her hand, she held a carving knife. "What are you doing?" "Adding something to your tree." Joshua watched as she carefully carved letters into the bark below his earlier inscription. The original words, "She's still breathing and so am I," had become their motto during the darkest days. Mercy's edition read, "And so will always be." She stepped back to admire her work. "There, now it's complete." Joshua pulled her close as Rose joined them outside. The three stood together under stars that had witnessed their transformation from desperate outcasts to a family united by love and purpose. The mountain that once hid a broken hermit now sheltered a thriving medical practice that served anyone in need. The poor black widow who had begged for her child's burial had become a respected healer and partner. Their story had shocked everyone who heard it, but not for the reasons anyone expected.